Let's talk about the resurrection. All right. So I'm very excited about this. I'm going to start a series of short videos. There's a lot to cover, obviously, so I'm going to try to keep it short, little videos. But hopefully you approach this with an open mind and maybe you'll learn something you didn't know before. This is historically accurate, so you can look into these sources yourself. If you want a resource for this, of course, you can message me and I'm happy to get that to you. But let's talk about the resurrection and the historicity of that. Now, first thing we need to cover is the groundwork, the foundation, because what do you need for a resurrection? Well, you need somebody who died. All right. So, did Jesus really die? That's the question we need to answer. And because if Jesus didn't die, then there's no resurrection to explain, obviously. But the good news for us is that Jesus' death by crucifixion is one of the strongest facts in all ancient history. And that's not something just Christians believe. It's accepted by the vast majority of scholars, which includes skeptics, non-Christians, and atheists. Why is that? Because the evidence comes from multiple independent sources. All right, so let's cover first. So, first, we have very early Christian sources. We have the Gospels. They record the crucifixion in painstaking detail. Now, I'm not going to get into today in big detail on why those records have been proven to have no reason to think that they're not accurate, because there's so many other details, little details like the depth of the water in that region was confirmed by archaeology, and that's put in there. The current town names, leader names, ruler names, all those things are all confirmed by non-Christian sources. All right, and they're recording these in painstaking detail. So how much more so would they record something of vast importance like the crucifixion of our Savior? Now, so anyways, the logic would tell you, and history and not Christian and non-Christian scholars accept this facts that they were telling the truth about what they were writing about Jesus's death. Now, I haven't gotten into the resurrection part, but yeah, let's just focus on his death right now. All right. So the Gospels repeat about Jesus's death, obviously multiple times in detail. Paul, he refers to Jesus's death repeatedly. 1 Corinthians chapter 15, Paul passes on an early creed that says Christ died. This creed dates back to within just a few years of the crucifixion. That is extremely early by ancient standards and absurdly too early for myth or legend to have crept in. And that's confirmed by, even current scholars. Okay. So that's first. We have very early Christian sources. Second, we have non-Christian sources. Roman historian Tacitus. He tells us that Jesus was executed under Pontius Pilate. Well, that's confirmed by our sources as well. Jewish historian Josephus. He reports that Jesus was condemned and crucified. These writers, they weren't trying to promote Christianity. They had no reasons to help Christians at all. Yet they confirm the same event. And then third, crucifixion, it fits perfectly in with the Roman execution practice. All right. So Romans were experts at execution. I mean, you don't even want to know the details. Crucifixion was designed to kill and make sure they were killed. And the Roman soldiers, that was literally their job, and they were very good at it. Victims were scourged, they were beaten, they were nailed, and then they were left to suffocate on the cross. Now, that's pretty much 9 out of 10 or 9.9 out of 10 times. That's how people died on the cross because they couldn't exhale. Like the way they were hanging on the cross, you can't exhale. So they couldn't get that next breath. And so they ended up suffocating. And that's why you'll find that one of the practices was if they weren't dying fast enough, because they were pushing up to get a breath, they would break their legs. That way they couldn't push up and get that breath. Um, and we see writings about that as well. But anyways, when it comes to Roman crucifixion, there is no historical record of anyone surviving a full Roman crucifixion. None. So that's massive. Fourth, the disciples believed Jesus was dead. They didn't think he just fainted. They didn't think he swooned, as if you've heard of the swoon theory that's been debunked. But they didn't think he had just escaped death. They buried him. They mourned him. They lost hope in him. They went back to their old lives. They weren't starting churches. And then all of a sudden you have this boom of Christianity after the resurrection. But you don't get resurrection faith out of a man who barely survived execution. Let's play devil's advocate and say he did survive. Oh, he would have been in no condition to inspire anyone. Have you ever seen the movie The Passion? That is historically accurate based on what they did to Jesus. He would have been in no condition to inspire anyone. But the obviously the history is points to Jesus was dead. The swoon theory doesn't hold water. And the Romans were very good at their job. So when scholars ask what facts are beyond serious dispute, Jesus's his death by crucifixion is always at the top of the list. You can't dispute it. Even critics who reject the resurrection will admit the point about the crucifixion. So that means any explanation of early Christianity, they must deal with a real dead Jesus. Jesus did die on that cross. Now we'll talk about whether he actually rose again here in some more video and some devotions, but the historicity of Jesus' death, you can't dispute it. And once you establish that the resurrection, once we get there, is no longer a fantasy story, it becomes an historical question that we're going to cover in big detail. So hopefully you're looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to covering it, but I wanted to cover the foundation today about Jesus' death. So thanks for watching. God bless, and I'll see you back on the next one. Take care.